this is just such a tremendous book. And I want to talk to you a little bit about, because what you do in this book is you say, okay, here's the theory that you read about in the history books, and they say this. And then you just, it's an avalanche of information. I mean, it's startling. There's so much proof that they're wrong, and it's all footnoted. When you were writing this about George Washington, when you first saw this stuff, did you have any idea on how wrong they have gotten George Washington?
The only way I knew Washington was through his writers, through his historians. And everyone said he was a deist. He mocked the scriptures. He only used it for humor, if he ever did.
And hang on just a second. In case you don't know what a deist is, because it's not real popular. And they weren't back then either, no. Right? A deist is somebody who believes in God as a watchmaker, that he started things rolling and then, okay, have a good time, guys. I'm going to go over here and play pool. And so it's just a machine that's running now. He doesn't believe in Jesus or anything else, right? Okay.
So if you're a deist, why bother to pray? Why do you need a clergyman? Why do you need religion? Because God had started, he's gone. I was convinced, because I had read scholars, that was the case, and my heart was really kind of despairing. Mm-hmm. And I started reading the quotes that those very authors had, and I said, wait a second. That text they're using to support Washington as unbeliever that he wrote has a Bible verse in it. But apparently the scholars who were reading didn't know what the Bible was. Well, if you don't read the Bible, how are you going to recognize a Bible verse?
Mm-hmm. It's like the Declaration of Independence. It's riddled with Bible verses.
That's right.
It's riddled with them.
So I started going through, and lo and behold, in the very books that were advertising the unbelief of Washington in his texts, there they were, filled with reference. I said, these guys don't see what they're seeing. They can't be right. And so I was astounded by the time, 15 years later, working on it, just how much material there is to show that he had a vibrant, personal Anglican or Episcopalian Christian faith.
So you believe that this was an error of history, that they just didn't know, or this was a purposeful change in him?
I think there's an element of both. We can really see a shift that occurred at the bicentennial celebration of Washington's birth. That's in the early 1900s, 1930.
Wait a minute, the Progressive era?
The Progressive era.
Who would have guessed that? That's weird, okay.
In other words, a devout, evangelical, Christian founding father didn't play well for those that wanted to move beyond Christian influence in government, Western civilization. So they needed a more secular Washington. And scholars found a way to present him in that form.
I have to tell you, I know what is on top of the Washington Memorial, and I know the stairs, but the way you describe it, I'm going to see if I can take the cameras into the Washington Memorial, because it needs to be seen, and I think there's a reason it's not seen anymore. Explain what's on the top of the Washington Memorial in Washington. Nothing can be built higher than this for this reason, and the stairs.
So here's this obelisk that towers over the great city of Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. And every morning as the sun comes up, it gets to see only the words that God and the Son can see. And it's in Latin, praise to God. In other words, here was a life who said his whole goal was to bring praise and glory to God. That's Washington's own words. He said, that's the passion of my heart, is to bring honor to God who made me.
The stairs.
The stairs, as you walk up. You can't walk up them today. They'll make you take the elevator. Of course, they think your heart can't handle it.
Sure.
I think it's a form of historical revisionism. They don't want you to see, as you go up the stairs, that there are Bible verses from the Proverbs all the way up to the top that were supplied by American people as they built that building as a testimony to their faith.
And different organizations built it, right?
So it's filled with different regions, with scriptural messages, filled to the glory of God, reflecting the kind of faith that America had, believing consistent with their founding father. I hope you can get the cameras in there and show them someday. Yeah, you need to show the nation because it's extraordinary.
We will.
Now, apparently, I can't prove this, but I've heard that there is a copy of the top of the Washington Monument that's on display in a museum in Washington, but it has been carefully turned so you can't see the Latin words, so you won't have the ability to ask.
Tiffany, our executive producer, will you find out if that's true or not?
We will find out if that's true.
All right. Watchdogs.
I've heard that said so
Email.
many times, it must be true. So what I would love to have happen is to say, all right, you keep hiding the text that's on the top, but let's put a camera over and see what you're not letting anyone else see.
Okay. Back in just a second.